Is the SEC going to 9 games in 2024? This is the week that it's going to be really hashed out. When you take a look at the models here, it's going to either be a 9 game schedule or Georgia and Company will stick with an 8 game schedule. And I think Greg Sankey had some comments on Memorial Day about that. He said this league is at the forefront of college athletics. Now, whether change happens immediately is a part of a careful consideration and a deep consideration. You can make arguments around both the 8 or 9. He says, but I'm watching a different reality. He goes on to talk about baseball. He says a baseball league, talking about the SEC, that may be more challenging than our football league. The content of our games and the opportunities created is not maximized by playing each other with greater frequency. We maximize that because of strength of schedule. Football is the same. So he goes on to add this. He says, the interest in our games is high. Is high for our games. Excuse me. He says the viewership on our network in 2020 was at record level because we weren't playing the same kind of games that don't draw the passion that a conference game does. I also know that when you look at economics, the ticket pricing around high-level conference games is very different than an FCS or Group of Five. So those are elements that to me are front and center. He goes on to say that doesn't mean everybody agrees. Look, they're going to 9 games. The question is when. And I'm going to get into the details of this right now. And I talk about television a lot over on Dawg Post. I talk about television a lot to y'all too. Make sure you're taking advantage of our offer with Doordash, and make sure you're using the code Dawg Post Summer. You get 50% off your $20 value when using the code Dawg Post Summer. That's 50% off a $20 no minimum subtotal. Excuse me, $20, 50% off $20, and $0 in delivery fees on your first order when you use download the DoorDash app in the App Store and use the code Dawg Post Summer. That's Dawg Post Summer for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. Thanks to DoorDash for helping us out this summer, and in the spring as well, and the fall and so forth. But when you start talking about what's going to happen here, there's a marriage that's taken place. And that marriage took place before the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. Stick with me here. It's going to take a second or two. When Texas and Oklahoma came into the SEC for what is now the 24 season, Disney is only required to pay those schools the amount that the other schools get. There is no certainty. I mean, I'm reporting this. This is not me wondering. I know this to be accurate. There is no guaranteed trigger or anything in the SEC's agreement with Disney that requires Disney to pay the SEC more money. The schools. Adding more members, Georgia doesn't get more money. Adding more games, Georgia doesn't necessarily get more money. But what the SEC has done is it's positioned itself with its partner in the league, in Disney, to have leverage over time. And there are windows to look in. They're called so-called look-ins. I mean, that's what they're called. So that when the SEC and ESPN talk to one another, there can be times where the two informally negotiate. There doesn't have to be a new agreement for this to take place. But I just want to make sure everybody understands. Disney does not owe any of the SEC schools any more money. That's not been agreed to. And there's not been anything that's come up that requires Disney to renegotiate with the SEC. But they can, because they're partners. Obviously, you can do anything, but I just want to make clear, there's not a mandatory thing here. If the SEC goes to 9 games, that does not mean that they will make more money from Disney necessarily. That said, I think they will go to 9 games. I also think they will go to 9 games almost certainly in 25 and 6, if not 24. My suspicion is Greg Sankey is explaining, hey, look, there's a reason why we want to do this, and this is the reason why. And his point about tickets, I mean, I guess I'd not really thought about that, but that's another way to create revenue. And the last thing that he says here is critical as well. He says, I think an important element for us as we think about our future is 2024 is an enormous year with the move away from the CBS contract, expansion to Oklahoma and Texas coming in, the college football playoff expansion to 12 teams, not to mention all that happens around us. And right there, he's talking about the Big 10 and the Big 12. So I think it is an important relationship building opportunity, important information sharing. He's talking to Disney, not just to he's not just talking to the schools. He's talking to Disney as well. What he's basically saying without saying it, what he's saying publicly, what he's insinuating publicly is, hey, look, everybody needs to go for the 9 game. The 9 game gives us leverage. It allows us to do all of the change in 1 year, not in 3 years or, over time or whatever. It allows us to get rid of the divisions. I mean, they're going to do that anyway, I think. But it allows there to be one fell swoop of change. And we just haven't seen that a lot in college football. Everything's been incremental. Big 12, big time incrementalism. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma are playing in the Big 12 this year with UCF and BYU. Nobody wanted that. We've seen, the Big 10, slowly add members and, the contract finally going basically to Fox. Well, certainly all to Fox in 2016. And then Fox sub-licensing it out to CBS and NBC this in the coming future. So I think my suspicion is that Greg is wanting to see everything happen all at once, not to wait. Again, the big thing is what he's saying here. This is the most important quote. A league at the forefront of college athletics does not stand still. If he's saying we're going to be at 8 games, he wouldn't be saying that quote. Now, I don't know Greg Sankey. He doesn't call Dean Legge for advice. In fact, I think he's probably the best commissioner in sports. It doesn't mean he's without, it doesn't mean he is without mistakes. He makes mistakes too. I think that the agreement with Disney is a longer agreement than I would have agreed to, but whatever. And, 10 years from now, Greg may be the commissioner still or not. 10 years is a long time, but then again, not that long of a period of time either. And I think if you're the SEC and you're saying to Disney, hey, listen, we love our relationship with you. We share an outlet together in the SEC network, but, we need more money for 9 games. I think, to me, Disney will respond to that. I think the problem for Disney currently is there is tremendous shareholder pressure for money. I mean, that's just all I say that as a Disney shareholder. I mean, I personally think that they should agree to more money for the SEC for more content because the only real thing that turns people on in terms of viewing habits is live sports. Everything else is dying or dead. I mean, you look at news, you look at prime time, daytime, it's all collapsing. The only thing that's not collapsing, the only thing that's growing, you look at the NFL, you look at the NBA. I will not say baseball. You look at college football. With the blip of COVID taken out, these are the strongest brands in entertainment, in television, I should say. And, for Greg Sankey and company at the SEC, this is about maximizing value. They did go a little early in 2020. They could have waited, but I mean, they probably knew for sure they wanted to be with Disney. And I think if everything stands still, this is still a great deal for the SEC. But there's ways to maximize your position, and Greg Sankey's job is to maximize the position, the revenue, the brand that is the Southeastern Conference. That is his job. And he's doing a very good job of that. But I think they're going to have to push through to 9 games. That really makes them the leader in college athletics, if you ask me. Or it adds to their leadership position.